Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webcast. The new Talent Goldmine is global. Top tips from two super recruiters, sponsored by Go Global. If you are watching this webcast via live stream on any of our social channels, you will need to view the archive recording on HR.com to receive your credits. If you have questions during the webcast, please click on Q&A in your webinar controls and type them in. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to our presenters from Go Global.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, HR.com. We appreciate the opportunity. And thanks to HR.com for providing a platform for us to share knowledge, collaborate, and discuss these interesting topics. We have a very wide global audience today. I've had a look at the list. We've got people from literally all over the world. We're excited to meet you all. We really encourage some activity in the chats and questions. We want this to be as interactive as possible. I've personally viewed a lot of these webinars. I like it when there's a bit of action, a bit of questions. So we're going to take the time to answer some of those questions. I'll do my best to monitor the chat. So if you've got anything burning, anything you want to raise, any comments, please drop them in the conversation. And myself and Javier will tackle those. So onto the topic, as HR.com have mentioned, this is the new Talent Goldmine is global. Top tips from two super recruiters. So we're very arrogant with describing ourselves as super recruiters, but the goal for us and for you in this session is to go away from the session with some actionable intel, data, and takeaways so you can save yourself time, money, and probably a bit of stress, because we've been there and done it. We've grown global businesses, we've made the mistakes, we've had some successes, we've had some failures, and we hope we can present that information and have a good session today. So let's move on to who we are. So my name is Nick Brawson. I'm actually based in Dubai. I've been in the recruitment, workforce management, and EOR and PEO market for a pretty long time now, about 18 years. I work for Go Global, and my passion is helping companies of all shapes and sizes to take advantage of the global talent market. And I'm really pleased to be with you today. I'm going to pass over to Javier, who I really appreciate joining us. He's a friend of mine, a friend of the company. So Javier, over to yourself.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Go Global. And thank you, HR.com, for your invitation. And I'm very excited to be here today. As Nick said, I'm Javier Diaz, CEO of OSI Engineering. I have over 25 years providing technology workforce solutions to global tech companies and startups based in the Silicon Valley, where I'm located, and across the globe. I began my career as a technical recruiter in the mid-90s, climbed my ladder through several successful global staffing firms before starting OSI in 2010. And again, I'm very excited to be here today. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you, Javier. You know, we always like to start with a poll in these HR.com sessions. So I want as much activity here. I encourage you all to participate because it's actually quite actionable. The information we get from these polls can steer the conversations. So poll number one, what is your global remote hiring talent strategy? Are you already actively recruiting globally? Do you already have a remote workforce in place? Are you planning to start global recruitment within the next 6 to 12 months? Do you have no plans for any global recruitment? You're just happy to be here and listen to us? Or are you unsure and evaluating the pros and cons, which we will certainly tackle later? So please, can we have 15, 20 seconds for you to participate so we can have some intel from this?
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear from the team where everybody's strategies are at this time. So this is a great question to start with.
Javier, what are you guessing?
Oh, look at that. Already have about 25, a little mixture of both.
Mixture of both, okay. So we have actively recruiting globally, almost 20% of the audience. Already have a remote workforce, that's interesting. I would be interested to get some comments from that. Some companies planning, and there's a decent audience that have no current plans, so maybe we can enlighten them on the opportunities and benefits of doing so, and a few that are still unsure. So hopefully the people that are unsure and are evaluating can drop some questions in the chat and we can tackle those. Let's pop on to the next section. Let's tell you about who we are. So who is Go Global? So Go Global, my company, I'm a partner at Go Global. We are the world's leading talent acquisition, HR and employer of record platform. We've been around since 2018. We actually originated in Japan and have subsequently grown pretty substantially across the world. We're actually in ourselves 82 countries where we have staff on the ground and offer employment solutions. And we boost that by utilizing partners as well. So we're actually almost able to provide employment, HR, and talent solutions everywhere. We actually currently provide that in 137 countries. We've got a really exciting, diverse team. So we have 50 nationalities in our business, and we call our team Govies. And what we're kind of proud of, and where I think we really dig in, is our operational expertise. And we illustrate that by some of the regulatory changes that we monitor across all these countries from an HR and operational perspective. So last year we operationalized 560 changes across those countries. So we have to really remain on top of things when it comes to HR, regulation, compliance, and change. And it's a very, very exciting and dynamic business. In terms of what we offer, so we offer employer of record solutions, which put simply is a methodology to employ, onboard, and manage workers in locations where companies don't have an entity. This model has grown significantly, I would say, since the pandemic, certainly with the rise of remote work. And we're currently looking after just under 3,000 managed employees for our clients. We also provide global recruitment solutions to our clients, so enabling them to source and onboard remote talent in over 137 countries, which is a very exciting part of the business. We offer independent contractor solutions, whereby we vet and analyze independent contractors that our clients want to utilize and take on. We provide benefits analysis as well, and HR consulting as part of the suite of services. And we also provide equity solutions. So when we're onboarding remote talent in the sales and technology space, companies do look to offer equity as a tool to engage and onboard workers. And it's something we work very closely with. We utilize a platform called Blue Ocean for our clients. So everything's managed through one platform. And compliance is at the core of everything we do. As you can imagine, when you're employing staff around the world, and we're doing that for you, it's critical that you trust in our ability to onboard and manage those workers. And in terms of offboarding, that's also equally important. And one of the things that I really enjoy in the business is the ability for our clients to utilize these models we offer to test new markets, open up new products and services, and take advantage of this global economy. So expanding globally. We also do a lot of work with businesses in the M&A space, pre-IPO space, where they are either carving out assets or going through an IPO. So it's a really dynamic business. We are recently ISO 27001 qualified as well. So technology and safety and security and cybersecurity is obviously key as everything we do as well. And I hope that gives you a bit of a flavor for Go Global. And I will pass over to Javier. Please take it away.
Thanks, Nick. So who is OSI? OSI is a leading technology workforce solutions partner to a lot of global tech companies and startups based in the Silicon Valley and across the globe. As I mentioned earlier, we are based in the Silicon Valley, but we have technology resources in 5 countries. What's unique about our services is that we're in most labs and developing next generation products and services. So what that means, so is when we have a client developing a new concept, a new prototype that they want to bring to market, we partner with them to help them build and manage their tech workforce. So if they're looking for very specialized engineers to come in to architect and develop the first prototype, we come in there and partner with them. So we see that product through concept and throughout production. And here are several services that we provide our clients. Contract placement. So if you're looking for a temporary worker for a short-term or long-term engagement, we provide those experts both on-site, remote, and globally. Full-time placement. So if you are looking for very specialized engineers or resources for your tech teams, we provide those resources as well as your full-time employees that we identify, thoroughly vet, and screen those individuals. Another service we provide is recruitment process outsourcing. That's when, if you just want to offload your entire recruiting process over to OSI, we've got several engagements with some global tech companies that we come in because of our years of experience providing talent acquisition services. We're able to come in, streamline processes, make them more efficient, and do this all remotely for several of our clients. Payroll services is another service we provide where if a client has a pre-identified candidate that they want to bring on through either a referral or someone that they know, we can come in, onboard that person as our employee, provide them benefits, and then contract them back to the client. And those are for short-term and long-term engagements. And managed services is another service we provide where we can come in and assemble a team of resources. So if you're looking to scale a small team or maybe build a team up to about 20 or 30 resources to work on several projects, we come in, we manage that entire engagement, we manage the milestones and see that product through production. And these are just a snapshot of some of the services that we do. And what's also quite exciting about our work is that we're at the ground floor of innovation when working with innovation teams. So we're really developing products and services that are changing the world. With this snapshot here lists several of the industries and technologies that we support. So what's interesting is that our technical resources all have renewable skill sets that they can apply and work across multiple platforms. So we're heavily involved in the automotive industry. When we have a consultant doing some development work for an automotive company, as soon as that project is over, we can then transition that individual, let's say, into an aerospace product. And that individual can be out there for several weeks or several months delivering that engagement. And when that project is over, then we can move them over to product innovation. So our resources are using the same programming languages, but in different environments. So this enables our workforce to be aware of the latest tech advancements and allowing our workforce to cross over to multiple industries.
Thank you, Javier. Well, hopefully we can tackle some of those during the conversation as well. You on the tech side, me on the go-to-market and sales side.
Exactly. And here are several of our tech leaders that we support, providing technology workforce solutions in their labs and innovation teams. And still, these companies are in consistent need of expert resources across the globe. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you so much. I just had a little note in the chat here, and it's interesting. We've got some people from Canada, Florida, SoCal, Texas. We've got Uganda, Nigeria. So I love seeing the audience. So I do encourage some questions as well. I'm just waiting for the first few questions. So let's go on to poll number 2. I think this can steer some of our conversation as we go along. So we talked about remote work earlier on, the rise of remote work, and we're very interested to know how remote work and the ability for employees to work remotely using technological solutions has influenced your company's global hiring strategy. So choices are, has it significantly increased our focus, your focus on international recruitment? Has it led to a moderate increase in international hires? Hasn't changed our recruitment strategy at all? We're still unsure about hiring remotely internationally. So let's get some participation and we can discuss the results. Let's give it 15 to 20 seconds. Javier, what do you think is, based on the first poll, we're going to see here?
Well, what I experience here is that companies are still competing over talent these days. Quality talent is still hard to find, and it's still getting very competitive out there. So I'm really interested to see where everyone is at.
Okay, hasn't changed recruitment strategy much is the number one, and unsure about hiring remotely. So that's interesting. I still feel that remote hiring and global talent and how to procure and find and source and onboard and manage remote talent is pretty still misunderstood and pretty nascent, because it's a growing part of the market. I think it's important to note also that when we say remote recruitment, remote hiring, that can be domestic. You know, the company can have a operation in California, San Francisco, and they may utilize onboard talent in a completely different state. It doesn't have to be over your borders. It's it's part of what we do as a business, so it's easy for me to think that, but also remote working can be domestic as well. So, okay, and we have a decent proportion that it says it significantly increased the focus. So that's really interesting information. Let's just move on to the next slide. So let's talk a bit about what we view the global recruitment landscape currently looks like. This is really a trend, hot topics that are coming up around global remote recruitment. Javier, I'd like you to tackle a few, and I'll tackle a few as per our specialism. So I think you can tackle the AI and automation, digital transformation, and a little bit on the independent contractor side. And I'll talk more about the remote workforce, nearshore recruitment angle as well. So would you like to kick off on the AI digital transformation side? I mean, this is arguably one of the biggest levers in the global economy now, something that's impacting all parts of the world. Some of the technology I've seen from a recruitment perspective and some of the tools I've seen that we can talk about later have been quite honestly a surprise and shock to me. Ways that we can source talent in our business and for our clients. So how are you viewing AI and digital transformation from a recruitment perspective?
Well, being here in the Silicon Valley, companies are embracing AI to empower their workforce. Basically, it's helping businesses of all sizes help their operations and become more competitive in this global market. And companies are using AI to improve a variety of processes within their company. They're using it to improve customer experience, increase efficiency, to ultimately reduce costs. And they're actually using it also to create new products and services. And also when it comes to AI, you have 24/7 ability. AI does not sleep, so you can consistently use it 24 hours a day. There's quite a bit of AI applications that are being under development at this time that are going to have a huge impact in our world. Some examples are with customer support. Now, we're all familiar with using AI chatbots these days. I don't find them very user-friendly, but with the new AI chatbots under development, they'll be providing instant access and instant accurate customer service assistance. And also they'll be improving customer satisfaction. They're going to be a lot better than what they are now. Another area is data analysis. AI will analyze large data sets for better decision makers for stakeholders of these corporations. It's also going to help with process automation. They will help automate repetitive tasks that typical employees are doing on a day-to-day basis and allow them to focus more on doing creative and strategic work versus doing these repetitive tasks. Another form of AI development under works is code generation. So AI can actually create code templates. It'll be able to automate programming. It'll assist with bug fixing and also assist with documentation. So development teams of the future will be able to do a lot more with a smaller team and complete tasks within days versus taking weeks to accomplish. And these are just a few impacts that AI is having on the workforce today.
Thank you, Javier. It is a fascinating topic, and there's a lot of, we read a lot about concerns of AI and taking jobs away and how it will affect the workforce. But I think ultimately the takeaway is it should be utilized independently, and it should be used to make you or your team 3x better. And I guess the differentiating factor is individuals or companies who don't leverage AI technologies are likely to fall behind their peers that do. So I think understanding the technology, testing out, using it is the key here, and not being afraid of change and seeing how it can benefit us. I mean, I've seen some recruitment platforms that utilize AI in searching for candidates. One that I saw in the last few weeks was a company called Hero Hunt, and I was going to talk about it later, but I think it's interesting. And they're leveraging LinkedIn, Facebook, GitHub, all different sources of information to enable companies not just to source, but to ask questions about the type of candidates and then feedback loop of which candidates are more suitable. And then they go back and search again based on those requirements. So we actually utilize that ourselves for some really niche hires. and it was a bit of a game changer. So I think AI pace and innovation is going to continue, and overall I think it's a very good thing for our industry. We'll move on to the second topic. So I think undoubtedly since the pandemic, remote work has become in vogue. It's become the thing. It's all over the press, good, bad. Is it good? Should people go back to the office? Should they stay in the office? Should they work remotely? Is productivity increase, decrease, flexibility? We could talk about this as one topic, to be honest. But I think the key takeaway that we're seeing is companies that offer remote work, or at least a hybrid model, tend to, and not every single company, not every company makes sense necessarily, some production facilities, of course, but when there's collaborative work and work that can be done online, companies that offer these solutions to workers tend to have better retention. Workers tend to be happier. Now, I guess it depends on the individuals, their situation in life, where they live, what their options are, but it is a fascinating trend. And of course, companies that embrace remote work domestically or outside of the borders, as you were saying, Javier, have a much, much, much wider talent pool to source from. If work is being done on a computer and they have access to the computer and they have access to internet, and we have things such as Starlink and much faster speed internet connections now, just think about how that can optimize your businesses. I'll give an example from our side. We hired some tech support individuals last year in Nigeria, and the support we had for our global teams round the clock just shifted. Just little things, not being able to open an app or utilize Teams, or having an issue by having a resource there in a different time zone, just immediately impacted the productivity of our teams. So it was a really useful tool for us. And of course, the clients we support see that as well, whether they're hiring tech support, whether they're hiring go-to-market sales or customer service or PAs, executive assistants, accountants, finance individuals as well. So I think the debate will go on, but I think it makes sense for companies to look at what works best for them. And I guess it will be voted on by the people and the workers as to what works for them. Digital nomads has been another interesting topic, and it's something I wrote about on LinkedIn. I think it's quite misunderstood. I think digital nomads, when you think about it, is someone just travels around the world working, and that's certainly one part of it. There's a lot of nomad visas that countries are offering skilled workers, and it's a very good thing. And, you know, we see this in where I am in the UAE, we see it in certain islands, we see it in Croatia, we see it in Europe more. Portugal has been a huge proponent of that, and it's boosted their economy significantly. But I think it's important to note that there are some compliance factors behind it. You know, it's all well and good if you're engaging a contractor, but if you're engaging a employed individual, there are tax implications if that person's jumping from country to country and back again. You know, there's tax residency implications, there's implications to your business. If you're employing them and paying them in one country, but they leave to another country, things need to be monitored. So, you know, we see all the pictures on Instagram and LinkedIn about people with their laptop by the swimming pool, and that conjures up the digital nomad, the picture. But I think it's a lot more to that. I think it's led to a boost of new companies. It's led to countries bringing in incentive schemes to bring talented individuals on. And now we're seeing a shift, a cultural shift of people moving around countries to take advantage of benefits, whether that's lower tax regimes or better incentives to them. So again, huge topic. We could spend all day on it, but I think I've seen some questions in the chat I'll tackle in a minute. But before we do, Javier, can you just talk about some of the independent contractor side that you've noticed from a recruitment perspective?
Yeah, of course. Well, independent contractors in the tech industry, we call them ICs. They are typically self-employed who provide services on a temporary or freelance basis. They are hired to provide expertise in particular areas or to work on short-term engagements or projects. But the number of ICs in the tech industry has been growing in recent years that we've noticed. And this is largely due to the increased popularity of remote work, especially during the pandemic. Also, the rise of the gig economy has also increased the number of ICs in the workforce, and the growing demand for specialized tech skills. And many tech professionals who are very specialized will eventually convert over to ICs because they enjoy the work. They can to really come in and work on very specialized projects without dealing with all the challenges working as a full-time employee and dealing with all the internal politics. ICs also have more flexibility than full-time employees, and they can also earn higher pay than their counterparts, their full-time counterparts. And they also have the opportunity to work on a variety of challenging projects. And they can also collaborate with different teams at the same time. So you can have an IC work for 2 or 3 companies on little short-term projects, and then that individual can pick or choose what they want to work on. And overall, working as an IC can be a very rewarding experience, especially for those that don't want to be tied down to one single company or one single project, and they enjoy the flexibility of remote work.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. I just seen a question in the chat there, just following on from the discussion about remote workers. Where can we find information about the tax implications for remote workers? So in answer to that, I guess it depends whether it's domestic, if it's a US company hiring domestically, or if it's a company hiring across borders. It depends if it's a contractor engaging. It depends if it's a permanent employee that you're engaging. And I think the best thing to do is speak to a specialist in remote work employment or engagement of contractors. There's so many pitfalls in terms of paying workers. I would just think very carefully about that. I mean, for example, companies employing staff in US companies employing staff in Latin America, they have to be paid in their own local currency. We see lots of issues with workers being paid in US dollar, which is incorrect. There's issues around that in terms of misclassification of employees. There's issues with the general engagement. So, and then you can look at the permanent side. Are those individuals being employed in a particular country? Is the employer that you're utilizing to employ them the third party declaring things properly? Are they keeping money offshore? Are they declaring in country? Are the social taxes being paid? Is the workers' expenses being done correctly? So there's many implications. You could go on Google now and it'll be a minefield. Mm-hmm. Very welcome to look at Go Global's website and reach out to us for information, because we do this all around the world. So hopefully that's useful. In terms of the final topic, nearshore recruitment, I think it's a term that we've just coined here. I think 10 to 15 years ago, there was the trend of offshoring. And I think in general, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying in general, the connotation is cost saving, employing workers in the Philippines or India, call centers, which again, can be a very successful strategy for companies. I think for us, nearshoring is a pretty new concept where companies are hiring staff in locations, typically across a border. So it could be a US company utilizing Canadian talent and employing them via a third party, whether it's a contractor or an employer of record individual, sometimes to save money, sometimes because it can be cheaper, sometimes for language skills, sometimes for time zone coverage. So we're seeing a rise in companies on the West Coast utilizing talent in Latin America. We see that with customer services. We see it with tech individuals. Javier, I know you're going to be able to talk about that later as well. So it can be a time zone thing, can be a skill set thing. It certainly helped our business if we look in from an EMEA perspective, because time zones from Europe, UK, and CET time zone are very close to Africa. Hence, I was talking about individuals we hired in Africa to support our teams. So I think nearshoring is an interesting concept. It's certainly expanded in the last 3 or 4 years. And we're seeing many companies take advantage of this talent that they can find. And what we have seen is there has been an increase in salaries quite dramatically in countries such as Philippines, India. Certainly in the last year, I've personally seen salaries, because we recruit in these markets in India and the Philippines, probably increased 10 to 25%, even in the last 12 months, because of the differentiator between US salaries, European salaries in those markets. So it's actually going to be interesting to see what happens when arguably those salaries may catch up. Will companies look at the arbitrage as interesting anymore, or will they find other factors that can influence their decisions? So lots of reasons to explore this concept, and we will go into some of those later. Let's just skip on.
Oh, I wanted to add something to that, Nick. So what we've been seeing in our industry, especially over the last 2 years, when it comes to nearshoring, is a lot of our clients have been letting us know to start prepping to do to provide nearshoring services. We're having a lot of challenges with APAC countries. Like we were mentioning, it's getting more difficult to find a quality talent because there's so many opportunities out there and the talent pool is getting much smaller, which is also increasing the cost out there. So when working with these APAC countries, the cost savings isn't there as it used to be. So we've been prepping and starting to look for nearshore resources. And when working with nearshore resources, especially here in the Silicon Valley in the US and working with Latin America, the time shift is only off about 1 to 3 hours. So that means you can still interact with development teams and just be a few hours off. Currently, several of my workforce work with development teams in Asia. The challenges with that is that my development teams have to log in at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night for meetings. This meetings can last anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. It can be quite disruptive, when you have to work a few hours, you have to work during the day, log off, and then jump back online in the evening. So by moving more to nearshore, you will have access to quality resources out there and at a better cost savings, but also not having to interact in the evenings like you are with Asia Pacific countries.
Yeah, one of the pluses of remote work is there's flexibility. You can manage your diary. You don't have to be in an office all the time. Sometimes that can be a good thing. One of the downsides is when you're working in a global business, sometimes you have to be available, as you said, Javier, at all times of the day, depending on what you're dealing with. So I particularly enjoy when I do a call with Asia, the US, Europe, and Dubai, because we always someone has to draw the short straw, always, and that will be about 11 midnight. So that's something to challenge us. And I see in the chat we had a message from Maureen about how can I become an IC, and very interesting question. So I guess it depends on where you're based, what country you're in, what your intentions are. You can set up some form of entity. In some countries, you can have a self-employed entity. In some countries, you would need a more registered limited company entity. You can be a 1099 employee in the States as well. So I guess it depends on where you are and what you're doing. Feel free to reach out afterwards and we can discuss that. So I'd like to continue pace. Let's talk about the power of remote recruitment. We've touched upon some of the key trends and facets of remote recruitment, but let's give a little bit more context around what companies can take advantage of. I always like to be an optimist. I am an optimist. So I'm going to start with the opportunities. So first and foremost, remote recruitment, whether that's domestic or cross-border, for whatever reason, does give you objectively a far wider talent pool to source from. Speaking from my own business, a few years ago, I was based in Switzerland, and genuinely we were looking for customer service representatives and HR representatives within a 20-mile radius. That was our 100% criteria to hire someone, 100%. And if they didn't fit that criteria, it just wasn't going to work because they wouldn't get the train from here. It was too long to get into the office. And guess what? The pandemic comes in, everyone has to work from home, and we did better than ever. And everyone thought, well, we used to want flexibility and you said no, but we're doing better than ever. So now that business can hire anywhere in the world for someone that suits the profile. And as long as they have the right intentions and they're trustworthy and they want to work for the business and they have access to a computer and internet, it's a humongous advantage to be able to find talent all around the world. Cost savings, if you are looking from a cost perspective, there can be salary arbitrage from one jurisdiction to another. But I will note, although it's an opportunity, be mindful that if they're permanent employees and they're being employed either by yourself or via a third party, which ultimately runs through you, some of those cost savings at inception can unwind later on, because in some countries, it's difficult to part ways with employees. So unlike the US, where you have termination at will, In some countries that doesn't exist, far from it, and there has to be mutual agreements to part ways with people, which can be very costly in countries such as Italy, Spain, Portugal. So I think it's very important that if you are looking to utilize global talent from a permanent employee perspective, be mindful of those risks as well. Diversity is something that is fascinating. DE&I is certainly a very popular theme these days, but diversity of workforce has something that can add huge benefits to a company from a collaboration perspective, cultural perspective, ideas perspective. The world moves so fast, things change from different jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and that information and knowledge sharing can actually add a lot of value to the business in decision making as well. And I think that ties into the cultural intelligence side. Personally enjoy working with colleagues all around the world. Being able to jump on a phone with someone in Nigeria or Croatia to understand their challenges, bringing them on the phone with clients can add a lot of value to your book of business. And having a business that can operate 24/7 is very interesting. Certainly from a customer service perspective, from a technology support perspective. So utilizing and leveraging AI as well as a global team can pretty much give your clients the best of both worlds, because you can service those individuals as opposed to the old days when you'd sign off at 5, 6 p.m. and say, we'll answer your email tomorrow morning. Sorry, office is closed, phone lines are closed. In this world, that wouldn't go down too well in certain industries. And of course, agility, being able to move fast, take advantage of market movements and trends from a remote work perspective is very valuable, certainly from a talent side as well. So I think that's some of the key opportunities. Javier, do you want to just comment on the diversity side? Because you've utilized a lot of talent around the world. I think I'd like to get your opinion.
Yeah, when it comes more, it's been studies have shown hiring a diverse workforce is very beneficial to corporations. Teams are more creative, they're more innovative, they're more productive, and they're better able to service customers. And also diversity can help attract and retain top talent. It also improves decision-making, increases productivity, and it's also, you get better customer service and a stronger employer brand when you have a diverse workforce. And also it's the right thing to do. And but going back to the access to a wider pool of talent, pre-pandemic, we had challenges. We've always had challenges moving resources in the US to these tech hub locations. So Silicon Valley, Seattle, Southern California, New York, we would find amazing talent. They were interested in relocating to these tech hubs, but just the cost of living, the cost of housing, the cost of schools was just 3-4 times more than where they were from. They would just not come out here, and made it very challenging to build this workforce locally. And we only had, I think, about 5 years ago, we had resources in about 3 to 4 states. But post-pandemic, we now have resources through 18 states here in the United States, and we have resources in over 5 countries. Because working from home works. People are just as productive working from home. It doesn't matter if you're across the country or in a different country. People are just as effective working remotely as you are working on site.
Javier, why don't you tackle some of the obstacles, some of the challenges when engaging a remote workforce?
Some of the challenges with a remote workforce is that these individuals can be not available exactly when you want them to be available. Sometimes they are engaged in multiple projects when working with talent sourcing. In order to assess their work can be sometimes challenging, but through right now we have quite a bit of tools that are available online to help assess and screen and identify these individuals. During the pandemic, a lot of online tools became better and smarter. It's much easier now there's no many resources now that you can just click and jump on video and have conversations with individuals. You can, especially in the tech industry, you can have whiteboards where you can do screening and evaluating. Previous to the pandemic, we would have to send our engineers into the labs, and they would be on a whiteboard and kind of sketching out some code. Now this all can be done online. Code can be reviewed online. You can assess someone online and really screen them thoroughly. There is challenges, but there's also a lot of benefits involved in sourcing talent online.
What about the process? So when you're recruiting, during the recruitment process of hiring a remote employee, so you talked about some of the tools. We've utilized Codelity for some of our hiring practices and some other psychometric testing tools. I think this is an area that's come on a long way. Video interviews, video CVs has helped a lot in terms of onboarding talent. But actually, it's not easy, certainly if you're using a third party to onboard staff. I guess very close to our heart is, we're helping companies hire staff globally. And those individuals, if they're employed by a third party, may ask, who's the third party? How's this involved? What's the relationship between the third party and the end client? So products such as Employer of Record can solve that, because the day-to-day worker is still managed by the ultimate end client, but the payroll and HR relationship is managed by the third party, which can be the best of both worlds. Legal and compliance considerations, I touched on this. It's worth talking about it again. Of course, bringing on staff, if they are hopping from country to country, can be risky, certainly if they're employed. It's very important to know how they're being engaged, where they're registered, where they're living and working, where tax is being paid as well. And certainly from an offboarding perspective, if that happens, certainly in the sales arena, companies taking advantage of remote sales talent for them to push a new and existing product to market can be very enticing. But again, if things don't work out, and inevitably sometimes that happens, how do you part ways? So having advice up front about how to do that is really, really key, because it can come back to bite you. What we found during the pandemic, and as the market everything was going up towards the right, companies, certainly VC-backed, flush with cash, were hiring all around the world because it made sense, and the shareholders wanted to boost numbers. But now, as things slow down, when you're coming to offboard talent, it can be challenging, it can be very costly, and it can be damaging to the brand as well. So I think having a careful consideration about how you are engaging, onboarding, and coping when things can go wrong is important. And I think that covers some of the key obstacles. Anything from a cultural side, Javier, would you say?
On a culture side, it can be, when engaging in different countries, it can be somewhat challenges, especially with language and just working with different cultures. But a lot of that once you're engaged and working with individuals from different areas, you can, teams will figure it out, and they will learn to work with each other. Communications will improve. But there could be it could be a bumpy road at first. But I want to kind of touch back on the recruitment process. The recruitment processes has improved quite a bit because of the pandemic. Onboarding individuals, there's a lot of applications out there that can, that can do the onboarding quickly. With just a few clicks, you can onboard an individual. You can have background checks done. You can do, make sure everybody's in compliance, fill out all the NDAs and onboarding documents done remotely. Previously, pre-pandemic, we'd have to have these individuals come into the office, and they would have a stack of paperwork that to fill out. All of that's been automated these days, and that can be done immediately. And also interviewing. A lot of companies become very savvy on interviewing. It is a big time saver as well. Previously, pre-pandemic, you would have to get in a car, drive to a facility, you have to check in, get a badge, it would walk you to a conference room, you would sit with a couple of individuals, and the overall process would take several hours. Now, with interviews and being done online through video, you can accomplish everything within half an hour to an hour without leaving your home. So the recruitment processes has improved quite a bit over the last 5 years.
Yeah, thanks, Javier. I think it's important not to downplay we talk about remote work and how many benefits there are, but I think it's important to note, human interaction, human collaboration in person. I think it's very, very difficult in the interim to replace that. Maybe in the future there's technology and holograms and all sorts of interesting ways to feel like you're genuinely with someone, and we'll see how that plays out. But certainly having some form of, whether it's a hybrid strategy, whether you cut down on some offices but leave some open, and whether you get together as a group, I think it's invaluable to build relationships and trust between teams. Because sometimes if it's remote, it can be quite transactional. Sometimes it's hard to build those deeper connections with people. So we find companies that selectively create opportunities for groups to get together can benefit quite dramatically from that, certainly from a staff retention perspective. And I think one of the other opportunities of remote work is retention of quality people. So something that we have seen just every day is companies saying, we have this fantastic person, but they want to go back to their country. They want to move with their husband or wife or partner to another country. What do? We don't have an office there. So we want to retain them, but we have no way of employing them. That stops that individual potentially going to a competitor, taking that IP away and that information. So there's a staff retention here, and there's a staff procurement angle as well from remote work. And I think the office space and offices in general was interesting. We've seen the slowdowns in commercial real estate, certainly in the San Francisco and West Coast, and we hear it all around the world. Companies are cutting down on square foot for offices because of this. And it can put companies at disadvantage. Those ones that have long leases, have that on as a risk to the business, can be at disadvantage. So we've seen some of the companies embracing remote work move very fast and take advantage of opportunities a lot quicker than other companies. So tapping into remote recruitment, we'll skim through this because I want to make sure we hit the final slides. So obviously there's several ways you can do this, and we touched on many of those, but you can simply do it yourself. You can just jump online onto LinkedIn, and you can scroll around and you can look for individuals. It can be time consuming. It can be challenging. You can use LinkedIn Navigator and in-mail tools, but it can sometimes pay to use specialists. You've got to look at the opportunity cost of what your time is worth and how long it takes to get someone, and how long it takes to get someone that's right for the job. The cost to find the wrong person is significantly higher than finding the right person as well. We talked about remote job boards. It's a really interesting phenomenon that's grown. There's many specific remote job boards. We've listed a few there. I would encourage you to look at those, where you can post remote jobs and you will get inundated with CVs. Sometimes that can be challenging because you have to filter those as well. There are tools, online tools that we've mentioned there, that can make that task a little easier because it's quite intuitive. It can work with your personal requirements. And networking and events and tapping into your connections, whether it be on LinkedIn or Zing or some of the online tools, can be very interesting to be able to find talent. My particular favorite is utilizing LinkedIn, where you can go to your first and second connections and ask for introductions. Whether you're looking in a particular country or you want information about a country, you can simply search, filter down, look at your network and connections in a country, reach out to them and say, we're interested in exploring opportunities or looking for staff here. Can you guide us in the right direction? That's something we've done before, and it's opened up a lot of possibilities for us. And the final one is third-party engagement. So utilizing companies that can help you employ or engage, manage and pay these workers. We talked about the employer of record platforms, of which there's many, and we're one of those, where you can utilize tools to onboard, hire, certainly at the beginning, manage and pay workers all around the world. It's a huge growing market. It's a really phenomenal product. You have to be careful because there's a lot of entrants to the market, and sometimes there's not a lot of substance behind it. And then you have really interesting products like Upwork, where you can have a particular task or project and you can tap that in and find specialists anywhere that can do projects for you. And sometimes those individuals can become permanent members of staff or ICs as well. So there's lots of ways you can do it. Any comments on those, Javier, before we move to the final section?
Yeah, with online tools, I'm really excited how they're going to apply when they apply AI to these online tools. It's just going to make it, they're going to be much more efficient. They're going to, what I anticipate them doing is not only will these tools will be able to find the right candidate immediately, but they can also contact the individual. They can also check on their availability. They can even initiate an assessment for this individual, basically just streamlining the entire recruitment process. So I anticipate significant enhancements and increased efficiency with these online tools once they apply more AI to it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I'm a bit of a futurist. I'm thinking how this can apply in 50 years' time with these tools and products like Neuralink and things that are being worked on. Imagine in the future where your requirements and your wants and your needs are centralized through a system, and the client's wants and needs are centralized, and they basically fuse together, and you meet your perfect employer based on what you're looking for and what they're looking for, and then X meets Y and they come together. So anyway, it's a very interesting topic and how this could all play out. I think we'd like to just finish this session before we do a brief Q&A on what some of the global talent hotspots are. I would encourage our audience to join in the last poll. Would love for you to tell us which region you have found to be a hotspot for hiring remote talent, or let's just base it as talent, whether that's remote, cross-border, or domestic. Let's run the poll. Let's give it 15, 20 seconds to get the answers. I can tell you from our perspective, and we're a global HR business, and we touch technology and HR and employment and payroll. We work everywhere, but in terms of hiring, I've personally been astounded by the amount of talent in Africa and Asia. I personally learned so much from working with colleagues in those regions. I was very much European centralized before, but I don't want to preclude Latin America and everywhere else, because it's such a wide pool of people to work with. Oh, here we go. Okay, North America, US, and Canada. So it'll be interesting to get some context around. It's always difficult to tell, but it's interesting to get context around the types of businesses, and we have a range of companies I've seen in the list, and what their products and services are. And we see, okay, Asia. So predominantly North America. Javier, your business, you've gone kind of across different ways, haven't you?
Yeah, I think because we're here in the US, we've been seeing a lot of development moving over to Latin America. It's slowly moving over there. So the plan is to build these development teams over the next 5 to 10 years, slowly moving away from APAC countries and then shifting that development over to Latin America. So I definitely see that increasing over the next few years.
And we work with many companies that have utilized Canadian talent from the US. That's been a very interesting shift. We saw a big boom in that about 4 years ago as well. So there's a lot of roles you could recruit globally. We'll touch on the tech. We're going to wrap things up in 1 minute before the Q&A. There's technology roles. There's go-to-market type roles of sales individuals and customer support. And I think we'd like to finish by showing some pricing considerations and cost considerations that we've seen over the last 6 to 12 months of salaries. So I will tackle the customer service managers, and Javier, you can just finish on software engineers. So as a business, we help a lot of companies hiring customer service, customer support, customer excellence individuals all around the world. And if you look at the salary differentials, and we've taken some weighted averages here, but it's really interesting to note when you look at the costs in countries like the USA and Europe, it's clear that the price is at the premium end, and understandably so. It's more costly economies to work in, higher cost of living, higher taxes, etc. as well. So it's understandable. But what's been really interesting is how companies have taken advantage of global talent. A lot of businesses we've seen hiring staff, English-speaking companies and products, hiring staff in Asia, in places like Vietnam and Thailand as well, and certainly in the Spanish-speaking community, whether that's North American companies looking at Argentina, and then also language skills very strong in Africa. We've seen many businesses hire in that region. A lot of good companies that provide talent procurement and employer of record and engagement products for African talent. And what I love about that in Africa is it's you know, a blossoming, eager community of young talent, a huge young talent community. I think more than 50–60% are under the age of 25, that are looking to work, that are keen to work, that now have an internet connection, that now have the ability to earn money in currencies and spend money in local communities. So that's the benefit of a knock-on effect of these offerings. It's not just local, it's international and affecting the local communities. And from a software engineer side, any thoughts that you've seen?
Yeah, it's just it's very expensive for software engineers here in the US. Like with data scientists and AI developers, starting salaries are around 120,000, but mid-level to senior developers are earning anywhere from 200 to 300, even $400,000 a year here in the US. But we've been seeing is a projected growth for data scientists in the US is projected to grow over 35% over the next 10 years, much faster than any other technology field. So we expect salaries to continually increase. So that's why companies are looking for resources globally to kind of cut down on some of those costs. So yeah, this looks in order.
Fantastic. Just, I think we've got 3 minutes left. I was worried we wouldn't have enough to talk about. Maybe we've been very verbose. We've talked a lot. So 3 minutes left to answer any questions. So I would offer anyone the opportunity to send some comments in the chat. I've seen one question about psychometric tooling from Holly. I will send you some tools we've used. Anything you've used, Javier, from a psychometric testing perspective?
No, not that I am aware of. I haven't used any.
Okay, fine. I will send Holly some tools that we've utilized. I don't want to give too much free advertising to all these companies, but okay, thank you. We'll do that. And let's see if we've got any other questions. Let's see here. Bonnie, do we have any questions? Okay. Okay, let's wrap things up in a takeaway. So, what's our big takeaways today? I think we've tried to explain that there's a big world of talent. There's people everywhere. The world has become smaller. You can jump on a plane and get anywhere. You can speak to people in a few seconds on WhatsApp or Teams or Zoom, and you'll be amazed at what people can do, where they're based, and some of the changes in the global economy, and some of the individuals that have the eagerness to work and the skill set. And because of online tools and training tools, again, whether it's tech or coding, sales, or utilizing YouTube to learn, things have changed. So you can really take advantage of that. There's many ways you can recruit and procure talent. You can utilize third-party tools, such as employer of record, contracting solutions. Be very careful how you engage with workers. Sometimes the price tag can seem cheap, but it can bite you in the end, whether that's from a compliance or legal perspective or just pure cost perspective, because individuals in certain countries expect different terms when you part ways. So be careful who you work with, who you ask questions to, do your homework, speak to many vendors, and don't be afraid to dig into the real detail, whether that's a cost or engagement side. Dig into the detail, ask the questions, and ask someone else in your network. So if you're in HR and you're hiring, make sure you do that. And diversity can be a massive boost to businesses. And I think this is something that I would like, and Javier would like to share, that it's helped our businesses, and it's very engaging and enjoyable to work with the global talent pool. And with that, I would like to hand back to HR.com. Thank you to the whole audience for listening and engaging with us. And we're very happy to answer any questions privately, and we'll share this video in due course. Back to you, HR.com.
Thank you. This concludes our webcast today. I would like to thank our presenters as well as all of you for joining us. If you joined late and would like to view the webcast again, the recording and slides will be available on HR.com on our archived webcast section. Please take a few moments and fill out the webcast survey that will open on your screen. Your feedback is very important to us. This concludes our webcast.